Welcome filmmakers to XVision video production tutorial on how to make your wedding videos more cinematic. So without further ado, let's get started. First, let's define in a nutshell what is cinematic. Cinematic filming is usually done at 24 frames per second, and the subjects are usually more in focus than the background. So let's take a look at this particular scene here. Let's stop it right here. If we look at this shot, it's kind of hard to see what the subjects are. The cameraman's in focus, the audience are in focus, and the groom, the wedding party are also in focus. However, the groom in a wedding and the officiant in this particular scene should be the focal point along with the wedding party as they're coming down the aisle. So to give it that cinematic feel, and which would also lessen the effect, or we can call it lessen the effect of the camera person who happens to be me in the scene, we need to mask out the groom and the officiant so they become the focal point as the groom is watching the party come down the aisle. So how do we do that? So the first thing we have to do is we need to duplicate a layer. And by the way, if you notice that this sequence is green, it's because it's a multi-camera layer sequence. Sorry. So if I press that, toggle the multi-camera view, you'll see the other cameras that were also used in this particular scene. So just so you know. So anyway, the first thing we have to do is duplicate the layer. So I'll press my Option key, and I am using a Mac, and my left mouse button to select the sequence and move it to the video line that I want my duplicate to appear on. So in this particular case, I'm just moving it up one layer, and I'll let it go. And there you go. So now we want to make sure that we select the layer that we just duplicated. Make sure that you're not on the bottom layer, but you're on the top layer, as you can see that I've clicked. Then go to your effects control panel. If it's not your effects control panel, if it's not there, go to Windows and select Effect Controls. And then come down to your opacity pen tool, select that, and now you can see that there is a mask that was generated for this particular layer. So what we'll do is now we'll start creating a mask around our subjects. And I'll start here just because, no particular reason. And his particular arm here, I want to be as close as I possibly can because I want to remove the camera person's face from this particular scene so I can really concentrate on the subjects themselves. And I'm going to be a little rough around the edges here for the sake of time. Oh, let's do this. I had a point there. Oh, sorry. Let's Control Z to undo. Okay. Start over. It's kind of rough. Not just for time purposes. Now, if you notice, my mouse disappears. My pen tool disappears once I move past the frame. So in order for that not to happen, I need to make the frame a little bit smaller. So I can click my pen tool beyond the frame from here, and I'm going to connect it by selecting on the pen there. Okay, so now after I do that, I need to scrub along the line to make sure that my mask stays around my subject as the scene moves to the as the scene moves to the right. And I also need to move my script to the left to make sure that the mask stays around my subject at the beginning of the timeline all the way through the scene. So how do I do that? So I'm going to create a keyframe at the point that I started the mask. It disappeared, but it's not really gone, so I just need to select my mask again. I'm going to select fit, so my frame fits into my entire panel here. And I'm going to move my pen, scrub to the right to see where my subjects are as I scrub to the right. Okay, so they kind of move. So you can see that this moves just a little bit. I need to move this to the left a little bit, and I'll keep scrubbing, and I'll move my mask to the left more a little bit. His arm is kind of cut off. I'm gonna move that. You can see that keyframes are being created. Okay, and let's go back to here. I need to move this over just a little bit. Move that over. Move this over. Move this over. I can take this and move the whole frame over just a little bit. Take this on. Oops. Control Z to undo. Okay, I need to go back to 25%. That over. Come back to fit. And then come to the end. Okay. Then I'll go to where I started, and I can go to my previous frame by selecting one of these triangles, selecting the left triangle, and that gets me back to where I started. And then I'll scrub to the left, see, and notice that the groomsman here will be more visible when he's in this mask, and the anything outside the mask will be less visible. So let's keep going back. Okay, great. So that's good enough for now. So now once we do that, we need to add a Gaussian blur. So select your effects panel, and if you don't see it, come to your windows and select effects. So in the search bar, type Gaussian, G-A-U, and we can see that now we have Gaussian blur, and we're going to add that to the bottom layer, and nothing's changed so far. So if we hide the top view, we can now see that if we take our blur here and we just start increasing it, we can see that everything becomes blurry. So I'm going to say around 23, and if you notice, the edges around the frame are not as crisp, so you want to select repeat edge pixels, and that allows you to have a crisp edge. Now I'm going to unhide the top layer, and as now you can see that the subjects are now more in focus than their background. So if you notice around the edges here, you can see a little bit of the camera person's face and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the top layer. We'll select the top layer, the top sequence, sorry, and we'll select mask again, and we'll feather it. And so just kind of stretch it out and play with this and to your liking. And once we do that, we'll play it just to see what it looks like. Wow, much better. So let's play it one more time with music. Add the music here. And now you can see what it sounds like. And there you go. So that's how you take a ordinary clip that doesn't feel cinematic and make it cinematic. Now keep in mind that when you're doing this, if you go with this approach, you're more likely going to have more clips where you're switching between cameras and you're switching back to this scene here. So every clip has to be done this way. Otherwise, it will not look consistent, and it's going to be very noticeable to the person watching it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was explained well, and happy editing.